Hello, it's Leslie here. So as of today, I have 311 subscribers. It's definitely more than I had hoped for, so I'm really excited about that. I wanted to actually make a video when I reached 250 subscribers, but I was a little bit busy, so I couldn't do it until now. Anyway, so thanks for subscribing. And what I wanted to talk about today in a little while was the process of learning languages with watching series. But first, I wanted to say that, I have to start creating my own content because if I monetize this channel, if I get to say 1,000 subscribers, I'm able to monetize the channel, but then I'll have to come up with my own content. So if you see all the trailers disappear one day, it'll be a temporary thing so that I can pass the checks to get monetized and then maybe I can bring them back. Anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I'm learning languages with watching television. I might not have mentioned this before, but I don't just sit there passively watching television. What I tend to do is I've done a bit of a basic course or something, intro course into the language, and I have a vocabulary of a couple of hundred words to start with, and then I start watching series only then. I haven't mentioned this, but I don't just sit there passively watching the whole thing. I actually stop and pause the video and look up new words. That's highly important because if you don't look up new words that you don't know, you'll never make any progress. So, yeah, that's very important to look up new words. You know, it is very tedious in the beginning because you're having to look up virtually every other word. You won't feel like you're making much progress. You've got to look up literally 1,000 words. So it is quite tedious, but I would recommend just to persevere with it and you'll get there in the end. So I would recommend starting with a show on Netflix which allows you to use dual subtitles. So I've made a video about how you can watch Netflix with dual subtitles. You can search my channel for that. Also, since then, I found there are other apps that let you have dual subtitles with YouTube. So if you Google, I'm not going to make a separate video about that, but you could just Google dual subtitles with YouTube and you'll come up with some apps that will let you have dual subtitles with YouTube. The trouble with that is that if they use auto-generated subtitles to begin with, the translation can be a little bit messy. So it's better if the subtitles are accurate to start with. And what I'll do is I'll put the links in the description below for the apps that I'm using for dual subtitles with YouTube. So after you've started with dual subtitles with YouTube, one in the language that you want to learn and the other in your other native language, then I would move on to subtitles with just in the language you want to learn. In my case, that would be Russian. And then after doing that for a few hundred hours, you can move to having no subtitles. So just to give you an idea, I wanted to talk about perseverance and attitude for a while. So I've been doing this for 3 years, 3.5 years maybe, I don't know, I've lost count. But I still would have trouble understanding a news broadcast. So I'm almost there, but I'm not quite there yet. So maybe in another year or so, I'll be able to listen to a news broadcast without having to look up too many words. But I try not to get down about that because if you think about it, like you wouldn't expect a 3-year-old child to watch an adult news broadcast. It'd just be too advanced for them. So really, you might expect that if a kid's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, then they might be listening to news. But more likely, they'd be listening to kids' content, children's stuff. So regarding the attitude, it's very important to maintain, positive vibes. It's a very long process learning a language. I think it's a little bit like if you I'll give you the analogy. Just say you want to learn karate and you want to become a black belt in karate, which would be the equivalent of being fluent in a language. I actually think it's harder to learn a language, although I've never got to black belt in any of these martial arts. I have done a bit of martial arts in the past, and if you think about it, learning a language is probably harder because you can put in 1 hour a day every single day and still not be there after 3 years. Whereas if you're doing karate, or you only have to turn up twice a week, and within 3 years you'll already be a black belt. So why I'm bringing up that is I recommend only studying one language at a time. And it's a bit like you wouldn't expect someone to be a black belt in karate and a black belt in taekwondo and a black belt in ninjutsu or something, or jujitsu. It just doesn't work that way. You rarely see that. So try and master one first, and then after a while, after you've definitely made progress, then and only then start a second one. That's what I recommend, because otherwise you just you become like, what's the term? Jack of all trades, master of none, I think they say. So you won't be able to master a language if you're trying to study too many at the same time. It'll just take away your language learning time from the other all of the languages. You won't get anywhere. So I've really tried to stick with Russian for a long time. Then after a while I started Italian, but I definitely staggered them so that there was a gap of 1 or 2 years before I started the second language. And I'm really glad I did that, because if I didn't do that, I'd be starting to mix up pronouns and mix up words, things like that. So that's another tip I'll give you, is stagger the languages so you don't study them. Don't be in the same phase at the same time in different languages. So about attitude, I think attitude is everything, and perseverance is the key to learning a language, because it takes you maybe 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 hours, depending on which one you're doing. And it's a really hard slog. It takes years, and the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get there. So I recommend, just, if you haven't started yet, start, make a commitment of 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, something that you can commit to and actually do. And then, and then stick with it. Something, and some amount you can feel positive about, and make sure you can finish, your daily study goal. I should talk about goals as well. You should have a goal, a language learning goal. My language learning goal in Russian is probably to understand series and to have a conversation with someone in Russian about the past. My language learning goal in Japanese is simply to ask direction for where something is. I don't really think I'm ever going to get very far in Japanese. Anyway, I'll talk about that another time. Talking about attitude and perseverance, I think it's very important to stay positive, because if you start feeling negative and feeling guilty about things, then you don't believe in yourself, and then you won't get anywhere. If, on the other hand, you stick with it, you try and keep it a positive experience, you'll be more likely to continue. So I have some days where I just don't feel like studying, and I haven't. I just don't do it. I don't force myself to do it if I don't want to. So, for example, the last 2 nights, I haven't done anything. I finished watching a Russian series. Which one was it? Storm, the one I just put up, Storm, which is quite good. I finished watching it, and often I found after I finish a series, I don't know what to do for a while. I don't know which other series to pick, and I fall into this trap of not doing anything for a few days. But I try not to feel bad about it because I just promised myself, well, in a few days' time, I'll go back on and start again. And just tell yourself anything so long as you don't quit. It's all about not quitting, and being stubborn and just going back into it. I have had some very negative emotions about this whole learning Russian thing phase, especially when it came to the cases. And I just persevered through it and just thought I'll get it eventually. And the main thing, I made sure I did a little bit most days. It might not have been every day, but it was most days, half an hour a day. And I try not to have longer than a week break. So I tell myself, don't worry, Les, just go back to it tomorrow. Okay, you'll feel better tomorrow. Just do it tomorrow. And also I found that I've plateaued as well, which hasn't helped my motivation because, for example, in the beginning you see all these words come up, I don't know, and it might be orange juice or something off the top of my head, and something will come up more quite frequently. Orange, a fruit will come up and you'll see it all the time. But then a word like you might, and yeah, that allows you to practice more. But as you get more into the intermediate stage, you don't see the words quite so often. So, for example, one of the last words I learned is inspiration. Okay, I just had to look up the word inspiration again because I've forgotten it. And one of the reasons I have trouble remembering it is because it only comes up once every 2 weeks or so, or less. So the word is vdохновение, vdохновение for inspiration, which kind of reminds me of zdochnut. But anyway, so it doesn't get much easier as time progresses because all of the words don't appear as frequently. And so even after you've been studying, 1, 2, 3 years, it might get easier in terms of you can watch something without having to look up the words, but it's harder to learn the next lot of words maybe after, into the 5,000 words. It's not easy. It's still not easy. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say about all that. Just try and keep things positive. You've got to be, having fun with it. If you're struggling, if it feels like too much like homework, you probably quit. I try and just watch things that I like. That works with a language which has a lot to choose from. In the beginning, I only heard of one Russian show, which was Kitchen, so that made my life easy. I just started with Kitchen. I recommend that show. It's really funny and it's not that complicated to understand. I wouldn't start with a crime series or something like that, or a medical series, because the vocabulary is going to be too much if it's a detective series or if it's a crime type of thing. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought then. Okay, so I've tried to pick the ones that I'm most interested in first, the ones with subtitles. That is, among the ones with subtitles, I pick the one that I like the look of most, and then I finish all of that series. I don't watch 2 series at the same time in the same language, that is. So here's what I would also suggest: if you are a person that quits a movie halfway through, then don't feel bad if you quit whatever foreign language you're learning halfway through. You might just not like the genre. It might not be the show for you. But I don't recommend. What I'm saying is, I recommend you finish the shows that you start, unless it feels like, you're just not enjoying this show. Why would you watch a show that you don't enjoy? Like, I don't tend to watch many dramas and romantic things or fantasy stuff. So I avoid those because I'm not really that worried about them. You know, I did watch a couple and I enjoyed them, but as I was watching them, I thought, this is interesting. I'm following this. I'm going to follow it until the end. If this little voice inside you says, I'm not enjoying this, maybe you don't like the acting, maybe you don't like the script, or you don't like the scenery, or whatever it is, maybe you don't like something about it, it's niggling you, then quit and find something else. But don't be too quick to quit, because then you'll become like a quitter. You won't ever finish anything. So I try and finish what I started, or what I start, and then it makes me feel good. Then when I finish a series, it's something positive. When you finish, it's like, wow, well, I finished that, rather than negative emotion. Oh, I didn't finish that. I quit that. So I try and finish things till the end. That's sometimes tricky. Like, for example, now I'm watching this The Policeman of Rublovka, and it's 5 series long. So I got into the 3rd episode and I already switched to something else. I switched to Storm. But I finished Storm because it was only 8 episodes, I think. So now I'll probably go back to the other one. But I kind of feel this is a hard slog. It wasn't quite as funny as Kitchen, and I didn't quite like it as much, so I'm a bit unsure what to do now. But the main thing is I try and enjoy whatever I'm watching, because if you don't, it's like, pretend you're watching it in English. If you don't like it in English, or whatever your native language is, if you wouldn't like it in that, then probably just quit and find something else. You can't always do that with languages, because, for example, in some, there aren't that many things available. Like, for example, in Finnish, I'm learning a bit of Finnish. I just can't find that many series, so I'm not as fussy with Finnish when it comes to Finnish. I'll just watch whatever's there. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say about all that. And one last thing I wanted to talk about is having a media center, because I've been watching all this stuff in my bedroom, and I find it's more comfortable there. And then also I have a certain time just before bed that I do all this sort of stuff and I'm not interrupted. And I have a media center. Meaning, what's a media center? Well, it's basically just a computer, a desktop computer that's plugged into my television. And all you need is any old desktop computer within the last 10 years, and a HDMI cable. So you take this computer, you plug in the HDMI cable, preferably have a Wi-Fi card in it so that you don't have cables running across all your house. And so the reason is, there's a couple of reasons. One is you can then watch Netflix through the Google Chrome browser and get the dual subtitles. And the other reason is it makes it a lot easier to switch from one show to another. So, for example, my mum doesn't do this. She watches Netflix through the television and the app and has to sign in sometimes, and sometimes it takes half an hour to sign into Netflix. It's all wasted time. And me, on the other hand, it takes me 2 seconds, 1 second, a flick of the... I actually leave the computer on. I make it hibernate. So then when I come back tomorrow, I just I turn the computer on again, or re-hibernate it, and it's already there where I left the show the last time. So that's there. And in another tab, I have something else I was watching that might have been halfway through. So using it through a computer, watching something through a computer, you can be watching several things at the same time through different platforms. Like I can have several tabs open through YouTube, and several tabs, for example, I'm subscribed to Premiere Russian TV media thing, and I'm subscribed to Start. So I have those tabs already open. So all I need to do is flick between them. And then it makes it easier. If I don't feel like watching one, I'll watch the other. And I don't need to sign into anything. And everything's there. So that's what I do. The only thing is I got my late father's desktop computer, which he gave me, and I made a couple of upgrades on it. I spent, I think, $30 on 8 gigabytes of RAM for it, just to give it a bit more power, which is nothing these days. And also, one of the upgrades is I got a cheap SSD hard disk, which might have been a couple of $100 or $120 or something. That made it a lot better. It didn't crash so often. And also, I got a silent fan for it. So a fanless thing, that was another $100, and that was well spent, because now I don't have a fan noise running in the background. So it's a silent computer, which it does help when you don't have this horrible fan noise. I can hear this computer I'm working on now has a fan on it, for example, and it bothers me. But on my media center, I have a fanless heatsink on the CPU. So look into that, and then you won't have as much noise going on while you're watching all this stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. But I started with talking about looking up the words. Definitely look up the words as you're going through the series. Otherwise, it'll take you 100 times longer to learn a language. You've got to look up the words you don't know. And eventually, you have to know those 5,000 words or whatever on command, like know the translation for 5,000 things. So it's a question of being patient enough to look up 5,000 words individually in the dictionary entry, and then being able to recall them really quickly, one after the other. Anyway, I hope this has been of some help to you. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you in the future. Good luck with your language learning. Thank you. Bye.